From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Dustin continues his conversation with USDA Meteorologist Brad Rippey. I have an update on the U.S. red meat sales for March from U.S. Meat Export Federation President and CEO Dan Halstrom. And Mark tunes into Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly Ag Conference call. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another edition of Iowa Ag Matters here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Dustin Huffman here with you. Mark Magnuson joining me as well. Beautiful last couple of days. You couldn't ask for a more picture-perfect weekend. It wasn't too hot. It was nice. It wasn't too cold. No real bugs. Humidity was down. A little breezy, but definitely picture-perfect weather, especially for those farmers that were wanting to get that crop planted.
Certainly, Dustin, I would agree with you. There's about picture-perfect weather. I was thinking the other day, this is kind of my favorite time of the year, just because of all the things that you mentioned. The weather is not too hot, but it's still nice out. The bugs aren't in effect yet. We have the long days with a lot of sunlight. It's just a great time right now. And that's also the weather that our farmers are enjoying, getting the chance to move through their fields, get things planted. And as we know, it doesn't take very long with today's technology and farm equipment that's available to our farmers. So we know that they are moving along pretty quickly. And then as we watched the world stage here today, there was some news last night. President Trump said that he was not happy, the administration not happy with Iran's response to the proposal that was put forward for the cessation of the conflict in the Middle East, and said that it was unacceptable. That gave us some positive price movement in the ag marketplace. And then here this morning, we saw that there's some ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz, apparently. So that kind of put things a little bit pressure on the other side in terms of what it does to the ag marketplace. So it kind of balanced things out. But as we know, that is a fluid situation, and it's all kind of leading up to this week, that big meeting with President Trump and Xi Jinping of China. And we've heard so many conflicting reports already going into that meeting about exactly what's going to be talked about. I think the big thing that we will have our fingers crossed that gets talked about is soybeans and potentially some more purchases by China. I know everyone's hopeful for that. But right now, I've also heard on the other side of things more talk about other ag products. You're talking about corn, pork, beef, those things from China being a little bit more acceptable in terms of the things that they want to talk about to make more purchases. So there's a lot going on this week. And then we also have a WASDE report.
Well, it's a busy week. I mean, today we got the export inspections report. We've got the weekly crop progress, which is a market is going to be eyeing very closely because the weather has been better for getting crops planted here in the Midwest. And, hopefully we're going to see some improvement, but it doesn't look like there's been much improvement in those weak states where they have been suffering here for the last couple of weeks. And, hopefully there's some easement there for them. But also, like you said, the WASDE report coming out tomorrow. Of course, May, not a big mover, usually. The next big moving report that we really see is the acreage report that comes up at the end of June once again. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. A lot of eyes are going to be on these reports to see where we're at. And of course, a lot of eyes on China. Like you said, trade will not be the only topic I'm sure they'll be discussing, because China's had definitely opinions on what's happening over in the Middle East. They rely on the Strait of Hormuz just like everybody else does for shipping. But because China is such a big importer of things, to have that shipping lane cut off is not doing them any good. But again, this is going to be a wait-and-see situation. Well, let's get things rolling as Mark will talk with Mr. Greg McBride of Allendale here as they get things going today on the grains.
Joined today by Greg McBride of Allendale for the opening market discussion. Greg, what's happening after the weekend in the ag trade here today?
Well, we've got a lot of things to talk about. So we started out strong in the energies last night as President Trump took a look at the peace proposal by the Iranians and said it was totally unacceptable. And the market took off. We were up $3 to $4 at one point in the energies. The corn, beans, wheat all followed suit with their strength. Obviously, beans have their own agenda this week. There's that conversation that's going to be taking place in Beijing between President Trump and President Xi. So there's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of maybe buy the rumor, sell the fact type movement. And then as the day started to move on and we started to get closer and closer to the day session starting, we started to hear that there were some ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that started to ease the crude oil back. Maybe there's some lessening of the rhetoric around there, and that also took the wind out of the sails for the corn, beans, and wheat. We are still higher, but we're sagging a little bit. So, with everything going on this week, I didn't even get a chance. We're mentioning that we have the USDA report tomorrow. So there's the first new crop numbers that'll come out of that. So there's just all sorts of exciting stuff going on for the markets this week, and it really just depends on which way the wind blows as to whether we're going significantly higher or significantly lower.
So, Greg, leading into the meeting with China, what do you think that means then with the situation so unresolved still in the conflict in the Middle East? Is China going to exert its influence at that meeting with President Trump and try to get things moving again, do you think?
I think there's going to be a little bit of both sides played here. So I think the President Trump is trying to kind of tamp down things, trying to push more for either a ceasefire or actual peace agreement to come through. But he may be using this meeting with at least meeting with President Xi to get them to buy into helping with opening the Strait of Hormuz, because that is a major thoroughfare for energies and whatnot going to and from China. So there's that. I also do think that President Xi could exert some influence on President Trump as far as putting pressure into whether or not this framework deal that they signed or that they agreed to back in October will continue as is without any either additions or anything taken away from it. So there's play on both sides here that we could see, and I think it'll be interesting to see the lead up to that meeting and what kind of rhetoric or what kind of conversation is used before we get to that point.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Coming up next, we will hear more from Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly ag conference call. He wrapped up the week with it last week, and he will talk about some of the differences of what we might see in the Senate version of the Farm Bill after the House passed its version through the House chamber. That's next on Iowa Ag Matters.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and as Mark hinted to earlier, we're going to be hearing now from Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. He ended the week with his weekly call with ag reporters and talking about what the Senate version of a farm bill may look like. Of course, it's going to be an uphill battle there as well.
First of all, in my conversation with Boozman, I think what he would like to put together, even as a bipartisan bill, and I think on these points, he could get bipartisanship if we didn't have this food stamp problem, that he's pretty much lined up with what the House wants. So your question is some things that I would want to emphasize. All of my fertilizer research bills, competition bills, the purpose of it is to have the U.S. Department of Agriculture ride herd on the price and the amount of fertilizer available, maybe not on a daily basis like they do with corn and soybean prices, but at least on a regular basis, keep farmers updated on those points, and for the Secretary of Agriculture to push for competition. And without going into detail, I would see some changes to CRP that would give more flexibility to the use of CRP, particularly for hazing or haying when we have droughts around the country, and we can help drought ship hay to other areas of the country. And then for grazing, and probably more emphasis upon making sure that environmentally fragile land is emphasized more than it presently is for CRP, and not having whole farms put into the CRP, and then to make sure that the fee that's paid by the federal government doesn't exceed 80% of what the local cash rent is. Then I think in just a general way, but it might apply to USDA farm loans, and then a separate loan would be to beginning farmers. I think that since 2018, because of inflation, increased price of land prices, increased price of the input costs, those loan rates that are in 2018 at least ought to be updated at the inflationary level, if not higher.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Stay up to date with the latest in the ag industry with Agribusiness Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Each weekday, we bring you the latest advancements in farming, from new precision ag technology to cutting-edge sustainable farming practices. Agribusiness Matters is also your source for the most relevant ag news, policy discussions, and insights that are shaping the future of agriculture. Tune in to Agribusiness Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
In rural Iowa, you need reliable information. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network brings you ag-specific content like market trends, weather outlooks, and policy updates that matter to your operation, while your local station brings you community news and consistent updates on what is happening in your area. It's a partnership built for the challenges of rural life. Your farm, your local station, and your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. Find us online at iowaagnet.com.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, starting off the week on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and you can follow along with the market information on our website at iowaagnet.com. Just click on the Markets tab, and you will see all of those ag markets right there for you. And coming up next year on the show, we will have the Basis Report. Dustin Huffman with the latest cash basis prices from around the state of Iowa next on Iowa Ag Matters.
Time to run down those basis numbers here for you on this Monday on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Dustin Huffman. A few elevators making some changes to their bids, all of them in a positive direction. Let's go ahead and run down those prices for you. ADM Burlington, a dime under on corn, $4.64. Soybeans, 23 cents under at $11.98. Cargill and Eddyville, 22 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.52. New Co-op Algona, 42 cents under on corn, $4.32. Soybeans, 67 cents under, cash bid $11.54. Ag State Sheldon, 25 cents under on corn, $4.49. Soybeans are 70 cents under at $11.51. Ag State Alta, 38 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.36. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $11.56. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 20 cents under on corn, $4.54. Soybeans, 30 cents under, cash price $11.91. Five Star Co-op Nashua, 33 cents under on corn, $4.41. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $11.51. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 29 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.45. ADM Des Moines, they're 25 cents under on soybeans, the cash price $11.96. New Co-op Red Oak, 34 cents under on corn, $4.40. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $11.56. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 50 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.24. Soybeans, 80 cents under, they're at $11.41. New Co-op Sheraton, 33 cents under on corn, $4.41. Soybeans, 65 cents under with a cash price of $11.56. Waukon Feed Ranch, 47 cents under on corn, $4.27. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.51. New Co-op Glidden, 41 cents under on corn, $4.33. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $11.56 for the cash price. Innovative Ag Farley, 47 cents under on corn, $4.27 for the cash bid. Soybeans, 71 cents under, $11.50. And at Cargill Muscatine, they're 22 cents under on corn, $4.52. Soybeans 32 cents under, coming in at $11.89. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. That's been a rundown of those elevator bids for you here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We're going to be right back after this message.
Stay informed with the closing market report from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, your essential summary of the day's market activities and their impact on the agricultural economy. Join us for timely updates and expert commentary on commodity prices and market trends with trusted ag market analysts from around the Midwest. Tune in every Monday through Friday on your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate for your daily market recap and insights to stay ahead in the ag economy.
We've got much more market information yet to come on Iowa Ag Matters, including a complete rundown of the midday numbers as well as full livestock analysis. Mark Magnuson will have that coming up later on in the program. You can find all our content online, including full replays of the Iowa Ag Matters program at iowaagnet.com. We'll be back on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and Dustin Huffman recently in Washington, D.C. was able to hear from USDA Meteorologist Brad Rippey. And Mr. Rippey talking about the patterns he's seeing in the weather this year. Unfortunately, he said it's kind of similar to 2012, but El Nino is powering up for this year, and he has the details of the weather next.
Talk about drought for a minute, since we've been talking about everything else. Current coverage on the latest U.S. drought monitor is 63%, just shy of. That is D1 to D4. If you throw in the abnormal dryness, that takes you over 3/4 of the country, takes you to 77%. And that, it's really interesting looking at this map, because if you kind of have an artist kind of carve out the Midwest there, you've done a pretty good job of cutting out all your non-drought areas. And it's a very, very sharp line as you head west into Nebraska, south into Arkansas. And so this was effective last Tuesday, and it does show you just the scope of the drought. As southern drought is significant, and the high plains drought significant, also extending into parts of the west. There are only, let's look first at the change that we've seen since the beginning of the calendar year. It has gotten markedly drier in the southeast, markedly drier across that central Great Plains region, and we've seen worsening conditions in much of the west. Some of that due to the low snowpack and the very, very warm March. Wetter conditions, though, in a lot of the Midwest, Missouri, all the way up into the Great Lakes, wetter in the Northeast. So we're starting to turn the corner in a few areas, but we still got almost 2/3 of the country to try to turn around here. If you look at that in the context of a time series for the continental U.S., you can kind of see the pattern. It's kind of interesting. We've got this 10-year or so pattern going on right now. We had wet cycles in 2009, 2010, we had that wet cycle and all that prevent planting in 2019. But then we've had these long periods of drought, and the early to mid 2010s peaking with the drought of 2012. And then we've had a lot of drought, a lot of anomalous drought compared to what you would typically expect in the early to mid 2020s. So we kind of look like we were starting to break out after that triple dip La Nina in the early 2020s, but now we've kind of gotten right back into it here in the last several months. So kind of almost a continuous extended or protracted drought in the early to mid 2020s. Our current coverage, 62.78% of drought, has only been topped 12 weeks in U.S. Drought Monitor history. 11 of them were in 2012. The other was in 2022, 1 week in 2022. That's the only weeks that we've seen higher drought coverage based on the U.S. Drought Monitor since the beginning of the product in late 1999. So I did throw up a map in case you're trying to remember exactly how things looked in September of 2012 when that drought peaked at almost 2/3 of the country. Obviously, it was right in the middle heart of the country, and it started to erode from the east at that point. But that's how it looked 14 years ago back in 2012. All right, let's get into this outlook. That's what we're here for today. And so we are talking about El Nino returning, which ultimately should be good for drought easing across much of the United States. However, we are not into El Nino yet, and it will probably take several months before we realize any benefits from any future El Nino that does develop. So watching that El Nino zone in the central and eastern equatorial Pacific, the water is starting to warm. really getting warm along the South American coast. We've erased all that La Nina blue that we saw during the winter. Another thing to note is just how warm a lot of the oceans are around the globe. We have warm patches in both the North and South Pacific, North and South Atlantic, and in the Indian Ocean. There's significant patches of warm water. So when you start to turn that El Nino zone redder, we've got just a very warm scenario set up. And with 2/3 to maybe 70% of the globe covered by water, that will have an impact and continue to have an impact on land temperatures. So when you see a lot of these forecasts for above normal temperatures, you can directly attribute it to that, to the warm ocean temperatures, not just in the El Nino zone, but other areas outside of that as well. You can't have that much warm water without it influencing land surfaces as well. So here's the official El Nino forecast, or ENSO outlook for the rest of the year. These are overlapping 3-month forecast periods. So we're starting currently with the neutral conditions. By the time we get into late spring, early summer, it becomes increasingly likely that El Nino will form, and almost certainty by the autumn and winter of 2026 into early 2027, over 90% chance. So that is really a profound influence on future forecasts, but not necessarily the 2026 growing season in the United States.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, we've already heard a little bit from Senator Grassley on today's episode from his weekly press conference call. And during that call as well, he called on Speaker Mike Johnson to press for quick action on year-round E15 in the House Rules Committee. And that was after the delay to appease the oil-producing states and their Republican legislation. So that's kind of set the table for what we could see this week.
Yeah, there's a lot of stress. I mean, it's the Speaker Johnson has promised that it's going to come to the floor to appease the ag state delegates or legislators that were quite upset with the fact that his idea of getting the rules negotiated was to separate E15 from the Farm Bill to get the oil state Republicans to change their votes, who had voted against all those rules because of the fact that the speaker had the DHS funding in there, some spying on foreign nationals bills in there. And so that's why he separated it without talking to the ag state representatives. And so that caused a lot of consternation. And it was reported that Congressman Nunn from our 3rd district gave the speaker an earful on the floor of the House over that. Of course, that got passed really quickly, but he has promised that it's going to come up on the floor this week to appease some of the agricultural representations. It looks like it could have a 3-1 to 4-1 advantage over the oil state representatives because there's a lot of bipartisan support, but there's a lot of questions on whether the speaker will actually bring it forward. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Well, we've been seeing strength across the board most of the morning. Mark Magnuson's going to give us the update with the midday numbers next on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson. Joined at midday by Justin McKinney of Comstock. Justin, what's happening with the trade in the grains here to start the week?
Well, as we kick the week off here, we're up about 3.5 on the July corn. December corn up 4, pushed up towards that 4.98. Have not taken out the $5 this week as we move forward with the forecast and planting progress, which will be coming out this afternoon. So all eyes on that. Crude oil also helping to support that. Traded a little bit better here today, pulling row crops with it. Soybeans up 5.25 right now in the July, new crop up 5.
And it sounded like the administration, President Trump, not happy with Iran's answer to that proposal for peace in Iran and that conflict. But we also have reports then today of ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Do I have that all right, Justin?
Yeah, as far as I know, and as of the minute that we're recording this, that's as much as I know. I don't know what makes them happy. We have seen the soybean market back off a little bit. So as we move towards the end of the week, yes, we have the USDA report coming out tomorrow, but all eyes on the soybean complex are definitely on what happens with China and the United States as President Trump and Premier Xi gets together at the end of the week here and see if there are additional purchases of soybeans on the table. At this point in time, it feels like there could be ag commodities on the table. I continue to wrap my head around why it would be soybeans when we're so far out of the market compared to South America.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade today?
Yeah, wow is all I can come up with for you there. We have traded those feeder cattle. We're in a $6 range. Today we're down $1.72 in the May cattle. August feeder cattle down $6.70 at the moment. Fat cattle June traded is we're in about a $7 range there, off $3 from Friday's close right now. Looking at some technical spots that need to hold on those front month June cattle. It was very positive up until 10 minutes before you called me. We had some 260 cash trade in Kansas on a Monday. Very good news. $10 ahead of the board. About 5-10 minutes before you called, the market reversed and slammed lower on the news that President Trump is looking at reducing tariffs for imported beef, trying to lower the grocery prices in the store. The market is not taking that well. We're well off the highs for the day, and who knows where we're going to go the rest of the day on the cattle market.
Farmers, stay on top of your local market with Basis Matters from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Every day, we bring you the latest corn and soybean cash prices from inland grain elevators and river terminals across Iowa. Get the prices you need to make the best-selling decisions, no matter where you are in the state. Basis Matters connects you to the numbers that matter most to your farm. Tune in every weekday only on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network and make informed grain marketing decisions with Basis Matters.
July corn up 4 cents at $4.75 December corn up 4 cents at $4.97 July soybeans up 4 3/4 at $12.12 3/4 November soybeans up 4 3/4 at $11.94 July soybean meal up $4.50 at $3.24.20. July soybean oil at $73.55, down 77. On the Merc, June live cattle down $2.43 at $246.48. May feeder cattle down $2.30 at $365.08. June lean hogs up $1.35 at $99.98. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're heading back into the marketplace right now as we're going to hear more from Greg McBride of Allendale as he gives us an update of what's happening with the livestock side of the marketplace. Again, a pretty strong start to the week there. Mark Magnuson has more. Mark?
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Well, we've seen the cattle continue to show some strength here. We do have them up just slightly to start. We're watching this June fat cattle contract. We're still off those highs in the fat cattle by about $5 to $6 at this point, but we are still in kind of that nosebleed territory when it comes to the market itself, close enough to the highs within striking distance, 1 day striking distance. You did see cash cattle trading above the week before. We were actually anywhere between $2.55 and $2.60 last week. The previous average was in that $2.55, $2.56 range. So we'll continue to be looking for some positivity out of that. There will be some conversation in regard to just cattle in general as we talk about what the DOJ is going to do with regard to the price fixing or concerns about overpricing of beef as we move forward. And that could be the situation. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll have a fundamental change in supply or anything like that, but we could see that pressure mount up and maybe take some price, take some risk out of the market for the cattle here.
What's happening on the hog side?
Hogs are rebounding. We've got the July contract of hogs sitting up about $1.50 to $2 as we start the week. This is a rebound that started on Thursday. We did post an outside day on Thursday, finished inside of Wednesday's close, but it does look as though this market's trying to find a bottom and recover here. We need to see cash start to come back around. Having this meeting with China does open up the opportunity for potentially seeing some additional pork exports to them. That'll be on the docket. Same thing as talking about additional beef sales to them, additional wheat or sorghum or corn. I don't think anybody thinks we're actually really going to get additional beans, but all the other ags are in play at this point.
What's the best way for our listeners to get in touch for more marketing information?
Give us a call at 800-2-MARKET. That's 800-262-7538.
Greg McBride of Allendale, my guest here today. Thanks for the time and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mark.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and welcome into Monday's show. Thanks for joining us as always. And the U.S. Meat Export Federation putting out its March results for that hard work that they do each and every month in trying to promote products from the U.S. overseas. Riley Smith will have the latest numbers for you. Again, this is from the March report detailing some of those red meat export numbers and how we were performing in terms of those exports recently. You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters.
Back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we are going to hear now from the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Riley had a chance to hear from them talking about the red meat exports for the month of March and how they're shaping up as the ag industry watches trade across the board. Riley?
The latest trade numbers for exports of U.S. red meats are out. I'm Riley Smith with the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and U.S. Meat Export Federation President and CEO Dan Halstrom says March was another big month for pork exports.
285,000 metric tons, which is the third largest volume ever, and actually the second largest value record at a little over $800 million. So broad-based growth, not only in the Western Hemisphere with Mexico and Central America, but it was good to see Asia contribute. And actually, for the whole quarter, Japan's had a good quarter, including the month of March, with growth of almost 20%. And then you look at, another solid month and quarter for Korea as well. So I think that's really the story, that, Mexico continues to be on record pace. Another good month for Mexico, Central America that I already mentioned as well. Combine that with Asia, I think we have a really good story on pork.
Through the first quarter, pork exports were 3% above last year's pace in both volume at 778,939 metric tons and value at $2.17 billion. Exports are on a record pace to Mexico and Central America. While March beef exports were below last year, largely due to the ongoing lockout by China, Halstrom said the value of beef variety meat shipments reached a new monthly high, surpassing the previous record from January.
The beef variety meat side continues to be strong, a new record high, $135 million exported on the beef side in March. You look at the countries contributing, this is the other thing. It's not just one or two countries on the beef variety meats. It's Japan, it's Mexico, it's Korea, it's places like Peru, Colombia, and the Philippines. The other thing that we look at indicator-wise there is on the value. Even though we may not have as much volume as we would like, the value continues to grow. Over $450 per head for every animal slaughtered. So that's the highest in 12 months. I think that's a real testament to diversifying markets and finding value outside of China. And we do have a bit of hope. We have President Trump and President Xi will be meeting at a summit in China. And we do know that beef is on the list along with soybeans and other ag products. So cautious optimism there for some improvements.
March beef exports totaled 97,731 metric tons, down 11% from a year ago, while value fell 8% to $844.7 million. The March export results also included 29,062 metric tons of beef variety meat, up 24% from a year ago and the largest since 2017. It was also a very robust month for per head export value, which equated to $456.56 per head of fed slaughter. Through the first quarter, beef and beef variety meat exports totaled 275,355 metric tons, down 11% from a year ago, while value fell 7% to $2.35 million. Excluding China from these results, exports were 3% higher than a year ago in volume and increased 9% in value. For more information, visit usmef.org. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith reporting.
Hi, my name is Ethan Smith, and I've been a certified crop advisor in Iowa for about 6 years. The Iowa CCA program is valuable to me because it helps keep me informed on new topics and research around the industry, including soils, insects, diseases, and much more. It's also a great way to network with others around the state and beyond. Iowa is known for its crops, and that's why we're here. To learn more about becoming a certified crop advisor, visit iowacca.org.
Well, Dustin, the nomination period's still open for the Heart of the County Fair Awards. And as we like to mention every time that we talk about this award, is that, yes, the county fair might take a few days to, actually take place, maybe even a full week, but it's that full year-round, behind the scenes, all the work that goes into it. We want to award those people who are working so hard to promote their county fairs and bring them to the public.
Yeah, that is absolutely right. And there's a lot of county fairs that are needing upgrades, and not only because the buildings that are needing to be repaired, but also the upgrading of what's there, and, to keep it relevant for another generation who, quite frankly, is glued to their phones. And so you want to make sure it's still a positive experience. You want to make sure that, you're still centering around those kids who are doing some great 4-H and FFA projects. And there's so much more those county fairs offer. And so we like to, say thank you to all those who are doing that hard work. And you could do that by nominating someone for the Heart of the County Fair Awards. Details online at iowaagnet.com. Just click on the banner. We'll wrap the show next.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
That's going to do it for Iowa Ag Matters. Thanks to Riley. Thanks to Dustin. I'm Mark Magnuson. Thanks for listening to Iowa Ag Matters. Join us again tomorrow for more here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.